Bien, bonjour et bienvenue à notre rendez-vous quotidien pour la presse en ligne et en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le vendredi 23 avril. D'abord, permettez-moi de vous rappeler que nous aurons les commissaires Maria Gabriel et Elisa Ferreira au coin VIP à 13 h pour vous parler des prix décernés pour le nouveau Bauhaus européen. Et donc, nous finirons ce rendez-vous de midi juste avant 13 h pour vous permettre de suivre ce point presse. Puis, je tiens aussi à vous rappeler que la présidente von der Leyen est aujourd'hui à Purs pour visiter l'usine de Pfizer, où elle fera également une déclaration à la presse vers 13h45 que je vous invite à suivre en direct sur EBS. Ensuite, la présidente a rencontré aujourd'hui le président du Conseil fédéral suisse, Guy Parmelin. La présidente a rappelé la position bien connue de l'Union européenne. Le texte de projet d'accord de 2018 est bon et est celui qu'il nous faut. Nous avons bien entendu les réserves de la Suisse sur les 3 sujets connus. Nous sommes convaincus que les négociations doivent continuer. Notre porte reste ouverte à tout moment et le restera toujours. Nous sommes prêts à trouver un compromis sur les 3 points d'intérêt pour la Suisse. Mais comme dans toute négociation, il faut de la flexibilité de la part de chaque partie. Nous voulons un accord est fondamental pour nos relations bilatérales. Let me now move to the President's agenda for next week. I would like to run you through it. On Monday morning, President von der Leyen will receive Mr. Aleksandar Vučić, the President of Serbia. Later that day, she will participate in the European Parliament plenary debates on the conclusions of the European Council meeting, of 25 and 26 March, and the outcome of the high-level meeting between the EU and Turkey. Then on Tuesday morning, the President will again take part in the European Parliament plenary for a debate on the EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement. In the afternoon, she will chair the college meeting as usual. On Wednesday, President von der Leyen will receive Mrs. Chrysoula Zacharopoulou, member of the European Parliament and co-chair of the COVAX Shareholders Council. On Thursday, she will meet with the Independent Panel for Pandemic Preparedness and Response via video conference. And later that day, the President will receive Mr. Albin Kurti, Prime Minister of Kosovo. Ensuite, les ministres de l'Environnement se réunissent aujourd'hui pour une visioconférence informelle à laquelle participe le commissaire Virginijus Sinkevicius pour le compte de la Commission. Ils discuteront de l'impact des changements climatiques sur la gestion de l'eau, de la stratégie européenne d'adaptation au changement climatique, ainsi que la dimension internationale de l'adaptation au changement climatique et son rapport avec les objectifs de l'accord de Paris. Une conférence de presse avec le commissaire Sinkevicius aura lieu à 15h45. And now, before moving to your questions, I would like to say a few words of farewell to James Crisp, who has his last day in the press room today, albeit virtually. James has been with us for 10 years, working for Amlex, Euractiv, and the Telegraph, but also the Sun, the Times, and the Daily Mail, our favorite newspapers. Particularly during difficult times like Brexit, we appreciated him for inserting much-needed humor into the press room. And we're, of course, going to miss James' original questions and Belgian animal-related stories. I hope that all his pets have their passports sorted out for the move back to the UK. But I must say that personally, I've also greatly enjoyed his very informative tweets on healthy breakfast diets through the hashtag #BreakfastInfluencer, which I advise you all to follow. And I look forward to keep following his morning appetites from across the channel. Who knows, perhaps he will start eating continental breakfasts once he is back in London. We're aware that Telegraph correspondents in Brussels have gone on to have exciting and varied careers. So we will be watching carefully what James does over the coming years. On behalf of the Spokesperson service, I wish him and his family all the best for the future and hope to see him back here in the press room regularly. James, ce n'est qu'un au revoir. And with this, we are ready for your questions. And we will start with David.
Merci Eric, et je me joins au fait que James va nous manquer. Question concurrence. Je voulais savoir s'il y a une position différente par rapport à hier sur la question à l'Italia et les 50 millions d'euros que le gouvernement a décidé de verser pour ce mois. Si on fait les calculs, ça va être, si on continue comme ça va être 50 millions chaque mois pour payer des salaires parce qu'il n'y a plus de liquidité. On est clairement dans le territoire des aides d'État qui n'ont pas été notifiées apparemment. Je voulais savoir s'il y a une notification, s'il y a des contacts, s'il y a une demande de clarification de la part de la Commission. Merci.
Merci David. Une question pour Ariana. We cannot hear you, Ariana. Quite unusual that we have a technical issue on our side. Okay, let's do the following.
Do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good. Sorry, I don't know what I what I had done with my microphone. So, désolé, David, j'ai pas de nouveautés par rapport à hier. Je peux seulement répéter ça que j'avais déjà dit. On a vu la nouvelle dans la presse et les articles de presse et nous n'avons pas de commentaires spécifiques. Comme je dis, c'est toujours pour les États membres d'apprécier si une mesure constitue un aide d'État qui doit être notifié à la Commission en vertu des règles de l'Union. Donc, c'est la même position qu'il y en avait hier.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, nous avons ouvert le chapitre concurrence pour Ariana. Je vous demanderai de ne garder votre main levée que si c'est sur ce sujet. So, competition questions only, please. Gillian, Tommaso. Tommaso, it was perhaps not a question on competition? Your mic source. Okay, not working.
It is now. Thank you for the floor, Tommaso Gallavotti, Economist. Just a follow-up to the question of my colleague David Carretta. What happens if a member state does not notify a state aid? Do you have is there a way to enforce the restitution of that state aid in any way or not? Thank you.
Ariana.
Tommaso, I understand your question is not purely theoretical, but you say it's in relation to what David has asked. So I really would not want to speculate in any way in relation to the case we're talking about. As I said, it is for member states to assess if a measure constitutes a state that needs to be notified to the Commission, and I would not want to speculate in any way on other scenarios.
Thank you. Are there other competition questions for Ariana? That does not seem to be the case, so I open the floor to other issues, and the first who had raised his hand previously was Lukáš. So we go to Lukáš.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Lukáš.
So Russia has just expelled 5 employees of the Polish embassy in Moscow. It was informed by the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and this institution also described Poland's action as a provocative. So I would like to know whether you are aware of it and do you have any comment?
Thank you. A question for Peter.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Well, I haven't seen the latest announcement and the justification for it and the explanations provided by Russian side on this issue. But in general, I mean, it would only confirm the recent pattern of the very confrontational approach by the Russian Federation towards the European Union and its member states. And the European Union in this regard was very, very clear, most recently in the connection or in the context of the bilateral Czech-Russian diplomatic spat, and mutual expulsion of diplomats, that the EU is watching this with concerns and is analyzing the situation and stands ready to support its member states and take appropriate measures when necessary. But again, on this particular case, I repeat, we haven't seen the announcement and we haven't seen the explanation. So this is just the general position on the recent trend in the EU-Russia relations.
Thank you. Are there other questions on EU-Russia relations? Oliver.
Sorry, actually not. I forgot to drop my hand. Sorry.
Not a problem. Okay. I do not see any other questions on EU-Russia. Other foreign relations questions? And I think that Remo has a question on foreign relations. Remo, tu as la parole. Vas-y, Remo. Tu peux parler, je pense. Nous te voyons.
Allô?
Vas-y. Le problème, c'est que ta connexion semble être défaillante. Et donc, nous n'arrivons pas à t'entendre. J'essaierai de revenir vers toi ultérieurement s'il nous reste du temps. So, other issues. Hans Joachim, sorry. Hans.
Yes, hello, Hans von der Burchert with Politico. I think it's probably on the same topic on which Remo wanted to ask. It's on Switzerland, so foreign policy, I guess. Eric, you mentioned il faut la flexibilité des deux côtés. So do you get the impression, did the president get the impression that the Swiss counterpart showed this flexibility during the meeting today? And were there actually any signals given from the Swiss side that this stalemate in implementing the framework agreement could be resolved? Because what we heard before ahead of the meeting was that there was a certain frustration, if I could put it this way, on the Commission side, that the Swiss counterparts were not really moving forward or not really showing the necessary willingness to move forward on this. So yeah, anything you could say on the flexibility, any positive signs? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hans. Well, I think that the meeting brought clarity in political terms, since we had the president of the European Commission meeting the president of the Federal Council on the Swiss position. And that position is clearly that the three issues of concern that the Swiss have expressed should be dealt with together and by being carved out of the agreement, which, as you know, is simply not acceptable to the European side. We have reiterated, the President reiterated, obviously, that we are willing to negotiate. We believe that practical solutions can be found on the three issues of concern raised by the Swiss side, but it is simply not possible to carve them out of the agreement. And just to follow up on the expression you used, you said there's frustration on the implementation of the agreement. We're not at all at the level of the implementation of the agreement. We need the agreement to be signed and ratified. And for that to happen, we need to find solutions on the 3 points raised by the Swiss side. We understand that there are concerns. We repeat that on our side, they are not a reason to stop the negotiations on the agreement. They are issues that can be solved with goodwill, and we are looking forward to the Swiss side coming back so that we can continue the negotiations. You have a follow-up question.
Yes, thank you. Just let me try to phrase it a little bit differently, but did you get any impression from the meeting that there could be some movement from the Swiss side now, or is it more you calling on them to show more willingness, more flexibility there? Thank you.
I can't say anything else than what I have just said. The Swiss position, which was reiterated at today's meeting, is that the three issues raised by the Swiss side must be accepted, that basically they must be taken out of the agreement as we have negotiated it. And so this is an extremely clear position from the Swiss side. Our position is different. It is that obviously you cannot carve out such three fundamental areas from the agreement. Let me remind you, one is the treatment of state aid. The second relates to flanking measures and posted workers. And the third is a fundamental issue related to freedom of movement. So these are simply not things that can be taken out of the agreement. But we understand, as in any negotiation, that there needs to be a discussion and compromises made on both sides. And we invite the Swiss side to consider such compromises. We have put some on the table, and we look forward to continuing the discussions on that basis. Remo, nous allons essayer de te passer la parole de nouveau.
Ça va, tu m'entends?
Je t'entends.
Ok. Bon, bref. Qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant? Vous savez, est-ce qu'il y a des réunions prévues ou vous attendez juste de la partie suisse qu'ils vous annoncent ce qu'ils veulent faire maintenant? Et sinon, dans votre avis, si les Suisses ne changent pas position ou ils ne sont pas prêts de faire des compromis, c'est la fin des négociations pour vous ou oui? Comment tu vois ça? Merci.
Il est clair que notre porte est ouverte. Donc, à n'importe quel moment, la partie suisse peut nous recontacter pour que nous poursuivions les discussions. Voilà où nous en sommes à la date d'aujourd'hui. Il ne me revient pas aujourd'hui et ici de spéculer sur la réussite ou non de la négociation. Ce qui est clair, c'est que de notre point de vue, il faut qu'il y ait des compromis de fait, des solutions trouvées sur les trois sujets de préoccupation de la partie suisse. Ce qu'il n'est pas possible de faire, c'est de simplement exclure ces sujets de l'accord. Donc il faudra voir effectivement comment la position suisse évolue sur ces questions. Nous restons disposés, bien entendu, à chercher des solutions. Are there other questions on the EU-Switzerland negotiations? Christian.
Oui, bonjour Eric. En fait, le ton très dur que tu adoptes, le langage que tu adoptes montre qu'effectivement ça ne s'est pas très très bien passé. Je voudrais savoir combien de temps a duré l'entretien entre Mme von der Leyen et M. Parmelin, et je voudrais savoir si les Suisses ont mis sur la table quelque chose qui concrétise en fait le discours qu'ils ont tenu en arrivant, c'est-à-dire leur volonté de trouver un compromis. Est-ce que sur les 3 points, ils ont présenté des propositions qui sont autres que celles de les retirer de l'accord? Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose qui permet d'envisager effectivement la poursuite de négociations? Et est-ce qu'il y a une date qui est prévue pour la poursuite de ces négociations, ou on attend un petit peu la réponse du côté de Berne? Merci.
Merci. Sur ton dernier point, je crois que j'ai été très clair. Nous avons simplement exprimé notre disponibilité pour poursuivre les négociations. Voilà où nous en sommes à la date d'aujourd'hui. En ce qui concerne la durée de la réunion, écoutez, elle a duré à peu près 1h30. Donc c'était un échange nourri entre les deux présidents. En ce qui concerne le contenu de la conversation, tu comprends bien que ce genre de discussion permet de faire l'état des lieux des positions de chaque partie. Ça n'est pas une séance de négociation. La partie suisse et l'Union européenne ont eu l'opportunité, depuis le début de l'année, de se rencontrer et de discuter des sujets mis sur la table par la Suisse. Nous avons fait un certain nombre de propositions en ce qui concerne des positions qui nous sembleraient pouvoir rapprocher ou des propositions qui nous sembleraient pouvoir rapprocher les positions des deux parties. Du côté suisse, il est clair que la position est que ces trois sujets doivent être vus ensemble et exclus de l'accord. Il ne s'agit absolument pas de commentaires durs, simplement il y a maintenant une clarté sur la position politique de part et d'autre, et je crois que dans une négociation, il est extrêmement bon que la clarté soit faite. C'est sur cette base que l'on peut ensuite continuer. Hans.
Yes, thanks, Eric. Just very briefly, are there any meetings, be it at political level or negotiators level, foreseen for the moment, or do I understand correctly that nothing is planned for the moment because you're waiting now for a Swiss position or Swiss answer on these compromises that you raised? Thank you.
For God's sake, Hans, it's the third time this question is asked to me. I mean, my answer is our door remains open. Odile, sur les relations UE-Suisse, il n'a pas été question de pêche.
Non.
D'accord. Alors, nous reviendrons vers toi ultérieurement. Are there other questions on EU-Switzerland relations? That does not seem to be the case, so I open the floor to other issues, and I go to Rafaela. Rafaela, you have once again a problem with your mic source. No, it's okay. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Okay, thank you, Eric. I have a question concerning a different meeting that is expected to take place this afternoon. The president is expected to meet Prime Minister Orban. Could you give us some information also about the purpose of this meeting? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, the meeting will indeed take place end of the afternoon, early evening, and the objective of the meeting, of course, is to discuss the national reform program of Hungary. You know that the president is in contact with many heads of state and government on their plans. We are nearing the indicative deadline for the submission of the plans, and therefore she is having discussions with various leaders on their proposed plans. Are there other questions related to the meeting this evening, or more generally to the Recovery and Resilience Facility and national recovery plans? So please only keep your hand raised if it is on this. Katalin.
Yes, thank you very much, Eric. I heard what you said about the meeting between the President and Prime Minister Orban. But Prime Minister Orban this morning said in the public media that he is not going to discuss the recovery plan with the President. He is rather going to discuss the future of Europe. So how would you comment this? Thank you.
Well, as you know, we don't comment on comments. It's clear that having successful national recovery plans developed across Europe will be very crucial for the future of Europe. So I hope that this is compatible. Virginie.
Oui, bonjour. Vous m'entendez?
Nous t'entendons, Virginie. Tu es un peu en contre-jour, mais c'est pas grave.
Oui, je sais pas pourquoi. Je voulais juste savoir si Madame von der Leyen avait eu des rendez-vous, comme celui qu'elle va avoir avec Monsieur Orban, avec d'autres chefs d'État, des vrais rendez-vous pour justement parler de leur plan de relance. Il y en a sans doute eu que j'ai oublié ou pas, j'en sais rien. Enfin bon, j'aimerais que tu nous refasses un... Voilà.
Alors,
C'est
écoute,
le premier rendez-vous officiel avec avec un chef d'État pour parler plan de relance.
non, la présidente, par exemple, il y a longtemps, a déjà été invitée par le Premier ministre espagnol. Ça s'est fait finalement par vidéoconférence en raison de la pandémie, à une discussion sur le plan de relance espagnol à l'époque, et la participation même à une conférence avec tous les présidents de région. Elle a de nombreux, elle a des appels avec des chefs d'État. Je n'ai pas ici la liste des rendez-vous physiques. Pour rappel, les rendez-vous physiques sont assez rares en ce moment pour des raisons évidentes liées à la pandémie. Mais bien entendu, lorsqu'un Premier ministre demande à la rencontrer, si cela peut être organisé dans son calendrier, elle se rend disponible. Bruno. Go ahead.
Eric. Go ahead. Yes. I'm intrigued. This meeting with Mr. Orban doesn't appear to exist, according to EBS. She's had a meeting with the Swiss, who aren't EU members, but I'm looking at EBS and I can't see this meeting with Mr. Orban. Is that because you're somehow ashamed of it, or ashamed of him? Usually, EBS features quite prominently visits of heads of state of government to the Berlaymont. Thanks.
Thank you for your witty question, Bruno. Let me remind you that I announced on the podium here Friday last week, so exactly 1 week ago, the fact that the president was going to be meeting the Prime Minister of Hungary. I was asked questions, I believe, early this week about what the meeting was about. Now, I don't do the actual EBS planning myself. You will excuse me, I have some other tasks to carry out in my function here. The meeting is absolutely formal. It is very visible. There will be a handshake in the VIP corner and will be covered by EBS. And so I invite you to watch the pictures of them in front of the EU and Hungarian flag. Tommaso.
Yes, hi, thank you for the floor. I also have a question on this meeting between President von der Leyen and President Orban, because as far as I know, Hungary is the only government which did not give its green light, it's okay, to the lawsuit that the Commission probably going to start against AstraZeneca. So I was wondering, will the President also try to convince Orban to join this lawsuit during the meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, Tommaso, but you are talking about a decision that at this point in time has not been taken. So obviously I have no comment to make on this. Right, I see no further questions on the meeting between the President and the Hungarian Prime Minister, so I open the floor to other issues and I go to Oliver.
Hi. Hello. Actually, I wanted to come up with a Belgium animal-related question, but I can't think of any that would be as funny as James's. And sadly, there's bad Belgian news concerning the pandemic. You've probably read about this group of Indian students who came to Belgium in order to do some training here, and it turned out that half of the group carried the Indian variant, the so-called Indian variant of the virus. It wasn't picked up by PCR tests. Apparently, some of them were vaccinated with the AstraZeneca vaccine too. So my question is, in light of the very bad situation of the pandemic in India, does the Commission think it would be a good idea to stop all flights, all passenger flights from there, or at least impose very strict quarantine, stricter than there probably are right now in some member states, on passengers coming from there? Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. On your question related to flights, I will pass the floor to Adalbert, and then we'll see with Stéphane if he has anything to add on the health-related safety measures. Adalbert.
Thank you very much, Eric, and thanks, Oliver. Perhaps the most relevant thing that I can say at this point about this is that the the Council recommendation that concerns the external travel restriction and that was adapted to the threats of the variants in early February, in fact, does contain specific measures concerning countries of origin of travelers where high risks have been identified. And in the same vein as what you explained, these measures include, or the measures recommended to member states include stricter quarantine arrangements or more testing, precisely in order to address the threat of the variants, which is one that the Commission is extremely concerned about. Now, of course, we continue to follow the situation extremely closely, both from the Commission side and together with the Member States in the framework of the IPCR in the Council. There has been a discussion on the question of the external travel restriction in IPCR as earlier this week on Monday. And of course, we will continue to follow these developments extremely closely.
Thank you. Stefan, do you want to add anything on the health side?
Thank you very much. Maybe what I would like to add is obviously variants are extremely important. This is something we have to monitor closely, and this is one of the things that the ECDC is also doing very closely. They're using all kinds of tools to monitor these and other variants, such as scientific evidence, epidemiological evidence, indicator-based surveillance, and sequence databases. Currently, there seems to be no direct evidence of such regarding increased risk for reinfections, vaccine breakthrough infections, increased transmissibility. But again, the ECDC is closely monitoring the situation. In addition to that, you know that the Commission is, of course, very concerned about the variants and has taken several measures to tackle these variants through, for instance, the HERA incubator, but also through the conclusion of new contracts, such as a contract which is currently being negotiated with BioNTech Pfizer for 1.8 billion doses, which are also meant to tackle the challenges we're facing regarding variants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Before we continue on this issue, a little compliment to the answer to Bruno on the EBS schedule. In fact, the meeting will be broadcast on EBS Plus, so please look at the schedule of EBS Plus and you will find it there in all transparency. Remember, we have 2 channels. So we move to Griselda.
Merci beaucoup, pardon. Vous m'entendez, je suppose, non?
Nous t'entendons.
Merci. Sur les vaccins, je crois que depuis hier, vous avez le soutien ou la volonté de 26 États membres de soutenir personnellement, je veux dire qu'ils accompagneraient la demande de la Commission européenne. J'aimerais savoir si ça vous permet de fixer une date rapide. Je crus comprendre qu'ils attendent un rapport juridique de service juridique du Conseil. Ça veut dire que vous retarderez la décision en attendant qu'elle arrive?
Merci Griselda, mais je n'ai rigoureusement aucun commentaire à faire sur ce sujet. Comme je te l'ai dit, nous n'avons pas pris de décision à ce moment précis, donc je ne peux pas faire de commentaire sur ce sujet. Je suis désolé. Giorgio.
Yeah, thank you very much. My question is on Brexit. Can I ask it, or are we still on?
No, sorry. We're on vaccines and vaccination for the moment. For a few more minutes. Patricia, vaccines, vaccination?
Thank you for the floor. I'll give it a try again on this legal action.
No, Patricia, I'm sorry. We have few minutes. I'm not going to be making any comment. Let's be very clear. Apologies for that. I will not be making any comment on alleged legal action at this point in time. I'm really sorry. I have absolutely no leeway on this issue. Apologies for interrupting you, but it's in the interest of time so that we can try to cover other issues of interest. Sorry again, Patricia. Tommaso.
Yes, it's just to ask if there is a meeting of the steering committee envisaged for today or not. Thank you.
That's a question for Stefan.
this is going to be my longest answer ever. Yes, thank you.
An exercise in brevity. Alain, on a couvert déjà le chapitre suisse. Donc, je suis désolé, mais étant donné que je dois arrêter dans 5 minutes, je vais d'abord voir s'il y a d'autres questions. Je sais que James voulait intervenir et donc je souhaiterais lui passer la parole. James, you have the floor.
That's very kind, Eric, and thank you for the kind goodbye. I mean, I never actually told Euractiv I was working for those other newspapers at the same time, but I guess, you know, it's too late now and they can't do anything about it. I have a question on fishing, and basically there's a suggestion in London that one of the reasons why a lot of the French fishing boats have not been getting the licenses they're meant to under the agreement is that there are applications with the European Commission which have not found their way to the British authorities yet, and I wondered if you could react to that, please.
Sure. A question for Vivian.
Well, good afternoon, James, and thanks a lot for the question. So when it comes to the issue of fishing now in this post-Brexit situation, we are on the Commission side fully implemented to ensuring full implementation and application of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement with the UK. There, of course, the top priority when it comes to fishing is to make sure that we have these license applications that are all dealt immediately. From the Commission side, for us, this is indeed an urgency, and we have on our side, we have no pending license applications from the side of the Commission. However, in our contacts with the UK authorities, we are in constant contact with the UK authorities and continue to make sure that they would approve these license applications that are pending on the UK side. And here we are talking about 20 for the moment we're talking about 20 remaining requests from the European fishermen. Thank you.
So no pending requests on the EU side, but the requests are pending on the UK side.
Correct.
Thank you. I believe there was another Brexit-related question. Giorgio.
Thank you very much. Indeed, yeah, it's related to what James has just asked. And I was wondering, so you're working on this issue with the UK authorities, but I wonder, is there a mechanism in the deal to maybe retaliate or react in some way if UK authorities make it difficult to obtain such licenses? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That would be a question for Dan.
Hi, Giorgio. Thank you very much for your question. Look, I don't think there's any specific mechanism for me to draw your attention to at this point. I would just refer back to what Vivian said, that we are of course in contact with the UK on this, and anything beyond that, of course, I would just refer you to the dispute settlement mechanism, but I don't have any specific information or specific mechanism to flag to you on this point.
Thank you very much. Giorgio, you have a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, I forgot to ask it before. I was just wondering whether yesterday's meeting between Commissioner Šefčovič and Clément Beaune, France Europe's minister, was related to this issue of fisheries. Thank you.
Dan?
Hi, Giorgio. Indeed, yes. Yeah, indeed. I can confirm that Vice President Šefčovič met with Clément Beaune yesterday. They discussed both the implementation of the withdrawal agreement and the ratification of the trade and cooperation agreement. Of course, fisheries was discussed as part of this meeting amongst a wide variety of other subjects.
Thank you. Bruno, you have a question related to Brexit, or to EU-UK relations, rather. Go ahead.
It's on the fishing question. I understand that the problem with these licenses is related to the size of the vessels we're talking about, vessels that are 12 meters or less, and the licensing agreement requires positional equipment on those boats, so you can show where they have been as a historical record. This is something the EU does as well, and so there's a problem with these 2021 vessels in that it do not have this equipment, and the licensing rules specify quite clearly that they should. So how are you going to get around this problem? Particularly affects Boulogne fishermen who are fishing in the channel, that crowded bit of water, when the rules quite clearly say that this positional history should be supplied, but they are unable to do it.
Thank you. Here I'd like to make the differentiation between the different kinds of boats that you were referring to yourself. As you know, and as you referred to, the access to the UK territorial waters is based on historical data, meaning that only those vessels which have the relevant track record of fishing activity can qualify to obtain authorization. Now, the collecting the evidence for these vessels which are equipped with electronic reporting systems, that runs smoothly. And when we speak about the 87 vessels that are authorized to fish, then for those, there have been the sufficient track record. The same for these 21 additional vessels, where on the Commission side we have gone through the process of the authorization licensing. Those have been able to provide the sufficient track record, but we are still now waiting to have these approval done also by the UK side. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Vivian. So that closes the chapter on EU-UK relations. I'll take one last question, going back to Alain. Alain, tu avais une question sur la Suisse.
Dans la question suisse, je crois qu'elle n'a pas été posée. Est-ce que la question de la Cour européenne de justice a été soulevée par une des deux parties pendant la réunion de ce matin? Merci.
Merci Alain pour ta question. Comme je l'ai dit, la discussion a porté sur notamment les trois sujets que la partie suisse avait mentionnés dans son courrier à l'époque à Jean-Claude Juncker et qui ont fait l'objet des discussions de ces derniers mois. Voilà, merci. Je suis désolé de devoir clôturer maintenant le rendez-vous de midi, mais c'est pour une bonne cause. Nous avons maintenant donc un VIP Corner que je vous invite à suivre dans quelques minutes sur OBS. Merci et bon week-end.